Hi, it's John from Cloud Formations. I'm going to give you a few capacity tips over the next few videos. Tip number one is you can have more than one capacity, right? Not a lot of clients and customers and people I've talked to across user groups seem to know you can have more than one capacity. That's a bit strange. So let's take a look at the capacity pricing. So here we are, this is the Microsoft pricing. So normally people tend to go for the nice big F64 just up there. That gives you a lot of benefits. The main benefit is it allows your Power BI free subscribers to become readers only on your reports and your apps and a few things like that and in the workspaces. Typically an organisation starts around about F8, can start it, and then you can ramp it up and down to your specific needs. A lot of things like having Copilot these days is now, used to be F64 only, is now petered down into the low SKUs. Yeah, F64 is still the old the old P1 in the old Power BI world. That's going around £4,000 a month if you reserve it, or £7,000 pay as you go. That's quite a bit of cheddar cheese. And we have, goes all the way up to the F2048 at a saving of £135,000 per month if you pre-reserve it. So that's amazing. I think we all know what the F in F2048 means. So you want to try and maximise your capacity and maximise a couple of things in the capacity, and this is what I'm going to be talking about over the next few sessions. First one is about, you can have more than one capacity. So you could have a mixture of F64s across your region and a few things like that, or F8, and I'll show you why you want to have more than one capacity and what the benefits would be. So you've got your capacity and you've allocated your workspaces to it. In this example, I have dev, test, production. You could have operations, finance, sales, something else workspaces specific to your organisational business units. Now, there is a temptation to have one big capacity and throw everything at it, but you could run into a couple of issues. The two main ones I tend to find are noise-enabled workspaces. Your production's running along quite nicely, but dev are doing stuff in there, firing up clusters, and suddenly things are going wrong in production. You can't allocate enough, Spark cluster capacity, or your direct lake queries are running slow because they utilise the memory and that's being sucked up by test or something else. So you could have other workspaces negatively impacting other workspaces. And in the metrics app, you can't really see what's being used effectively to some degree. Now, I'm going to argue that you want your production to be reliable, dependable, accessible. Really nice words that end in "able," which is good because that's your production environment. You want absolutely nice to be used by the rest of the organisation, be nice to use by the users. And in your production environment, you should have a known timing of workloads. I'm talking about pipeline schedules, how much data is going to be roughly coming through, when it's scheduled to come through. So you should have a nice idea of what's going on in production. You will have some variable timing of user access, which will affect the capacity, report consumption, ad hoc queries, any interactive notebooks or heavily utilised Power BI reports, maybe seasonal variations, end of month issues, where people are really hitting the reports or running queries. But generally, you have a known timing of what's going on in your production system, known time of workloads. Now we're going to compare that to dev and test, where you can have an unknown timing of workloads in terms of frequency and volume. Dev is going to be running maybe more interactive notebooks and firing up Spark clusters and doing a bit more weird things. Maybe in test you're going to do full reloads of stuff. So there's going to be a very, very independent timing of frequency and volume at times in your dev and test. And this could occur in other workspaces as well, not just dev and test. So you will have variable timings of user access to test items, probably a little bit less than production, because people aren't going to be consuming things daily, I guess, in test, in the volumes that you have in production. So what's the solution to this? Well, the solution is to break it out. Have your production workspace on a known capacity, so you've got known responsiveness and known accessibility. That's brilliant. And dev and test can be put on smaller capacities because you probably don't need as much resources as production. Don't forget, capacities can be scaled up and down. So if you think dev and test needs to be scaled up from, say, F8 to F16, you can do that quite quickly. And don't forget, you can also pause and resume. There's a link here to a really good script for be showing about fabric capacity management, uses an Azure runbook and a bit of PowerShell to stop and start a capacity during various timing intervals. So don't forget, if you have, say, an F8 and you don't want it on all the time, if you remember that chart at the start, you can reduce your costs by turning it off if you're in the pay-as-you-go. That's fantastic. So don't forget, pause and resume, scale up or down to your needs. And production is nicely, safely just chewing on your reports, chewing on your pipelines, nice and safely. So hopefully that's gave you a few ideas how you can manage your capacities better, particularly around maintaining your stability of production environment for various workloads against temporally sensitive workloads. If you do have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'll try to address them. Hopefully that was a really nice tip for you. Go away and think about how you can improve the reliability of your capacity. Thank you very much.